What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well today. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to diagnose your PTO clutch issue, the most common issues that I see. And it's basically going to be kind of a 101. We're going to cover everything, pretty much every situation that I see. All right. And it comes down to two different things, two different categories. It's either physical damage to the clutch or an electronic issue. All right. And I don't want you guys to be like some of the customers I see all the time come in, their blades aren't engaging or something's going wrong, and they change the PTO switch. So they go and buy a $80 PTO switch and waste the time changing it out when they never needed to do that. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's rarely the PTO switch. All right, now this doesn't just apply to John Deere's. It applies to the Skag, Toro, everything. They use a lot of the same parts. And so this is going to be kind of just a general thing, but mostly everything I'm going to show you is going to be on John Deere's, on commercial mowers. I'm going to show you some standards, some like a 636M, and some zero turns. Now, when someone comes in and they say, hey, I'm having something wrong with my blades engaging, this is what I'll see written on the work order. Blades not engaging. That's all I see. Okay, so I got to determine, okay, is this an electrical issue or is it a physical issue, physical damage issue? Most of the time it's a physical damage issue. So first off, make sure the belt's on there correctly. And then I'll go in underneath there and look, and you might see, this is kind of rare, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Broken crankshaft bolt holding the clutch on. Now, this can be good news and bad news all at the same time. Good news being you may not have to buy a new clutch. Bad news is you're about to have to pay or do it yourself or extract a broken bolt from the crankshaft, which can be very time consuming and painstaking work. That's kind of the third most rare out of the physical damage issue. And the physical damage is probably the most common versus electronic. So we'll get to the electronic here in just a moment. The most common is a broken clutch stop bracket or clutch stop, anti-rotation bolt. I've done a couple videos on this in the past. Basically what that is when you engage the PTO clutch, there's a bracket or a bolt or something that stops the clutch from just spinning around on the crankshaft. Now, once that fails, it normally will damage not only the clutch, but it definitely will damage the wiring harness. And the other common issue is are the bearings of the clutch. Now, when the bearings go bad in the clutch, it creates some heat, it creates noise. You're going to also hear noise with that clutch stop bracket broken. When you start up the mower, you're going to hear like a grounding, squealing, all this mess going on. It's not going to be good. Chances are in those situations, you're going to have to replace the clutch. And if it's a clutch stop bracket or other situations on the John Deere zero turn, 900 zero turns, you're probably going to either have to get like a reinforcement welded in or the replacement bracket like I've done videos on in the past. Now, if it's the bearings, you're going to have to replace the clutch. And real quick, let's go over again. These clutches, I don't know about the other brands, but I know for the John Deere, Warner makes these clutches. You can buy these directly from PTO Direct and save a couple $100. All right. Versus buying the exact same clutch from John Deere with the John Deere part number in a John Deere box. All right. So I'm also going to show you guys some removal tips because sometimes these clutches can be really hard to remove, especially if it's had burned up bearings and it's gotten hot and caused that crankshaft to kind of swell a little bit. I'm going to show you that here in just a moment. Actually, let's go ahead and show you that now. All right, so first I'm going to lubricate everything with some WD-40. WD-40 is not going to hurt anything on your clutch. I'm going to remove this belt guide. This is on a Z900 series. And first I want to show you guys the method that works most often is I loosen and tighten the bolt. Like in this case, I'm going to loosen the bolt all the way out. I'm going to pull the bolt all the way out and I'm going to lubricate it. I'm going to lubricate that bushing. And you can see how the clutch has stayed on the crankshaft. And I'm going to spray some WD-40 up through there, spray it on the bolt. And you see it's steaming hot there. And you want to keep that bolt as cool as possible. I'm going to put that bushing back in there with some WD-40. And now I'm going to do the tightening and loosening, which helps, I would say 70% of the time this works. I can tighten and loosen. And in this particular case, it wasn't really working. The bottom part was coming off fine, but the top part was staying on pretty tight. Now you'll notice that hole in the frame up to the top right of the screen. That's where the oil filter comes through. So I'm going to take, you can try to tap it right here, but I'm going to take a bolt here and go through that hole in the frame. I'm going to take a bolt, and sometimes you can use like a stud or something, like a piece of rod, and I'm just going to tap it loose, just gentle taps. You notice I have the bolt still in the crankshaft, that way the clutch doesn't just fall on the ground. And normally this will work pretty good if the tightening and loosening method doesn't work. You can see how I went through that hole there. And I can remove it, and it'll remove the clutch pretty easily from the crankshaft. Loosen it on up, pull it on down, and we're free. Now's a good time to check the bearings, fill the bearings. And I would recommend putting some anti-seize on that crankshaft. Right here I can easily undo the wiring harness, check continuity of the wiring harness. Now we can do a bench test if needed on that clutch. This is either a 661 or a 652. You have to remove that bracket that holds that scalping wheel. I'm going to lubricate it with some WD-40. Spray it in there. And the tightening and loosening method works great on this situation. But notice I didn't realize that I had the deck belt still tight, but the clutch loosened up pretty good. Just a series of tightening and loosening, and a lot of times that will work that clutch loose. And then I realize as I'm pulling it down that I still have tension on the deck belt, so I'll loosen that deck belt, and then I'm able to pull the clutch right off. Loosen up the belt there, and I can pull the clutch right off. Sometimes these models have a washer between that dry pulley and the clutch, so make sure you are aware of that. Checking the bearings. See if they feel rough or if they feel smooth. Now this is a 636M. I took the wiring harness loose. And you want to cut that little zip tie right there on that clutch stop bracket. And you can see these bearings right now were giving problems. You can see those exposed bearings are worn out. And on this particular model, the customer changed the PTO switch, and when I went to crank it up, the blades were instantly engaging because the clutch was just seized up. So take the 16mm bolt, and I'm gonna go ahead and lubricate everything up with my WD-40. I've already tried the tightening and loosening method on this. It's not working right. And so what I'm gonna do is go through that left-hand frame hole right there below the air filter, and I'm going to put a 5/8 inch solid rod to kind of just gently tap on the top of that clutch to work it on down. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Got the wiring harness loose. There's the hole I'm going to go through, and I'm going to tap on the top of that clutch. I'm going to go ahead and take the bolt all the way out. I'm going to find just the right rod, and here you can see, paying no attention to that bolt that I have welded to the rod, but that rod is 5/8 or 3/4 inch, I can't remember. I just tapped on it with that hammer, and that works out pretty well. Just take the time to find the right tool that you need. All right, so now that we got the physical issues out of the way, I've shown you how to remove the clutch, some situations. Now, occasionally, if the tightening loosening method doesn't work and the using a punch and a hammer method doesn't work, there are times, very rare, I have to basically cut that clutch off, and I don't use a blowtorch. What I use is a grinder with a slicer wheel, and to very strategically cut it off the crankshaft. I don't want to overheat or damage that crankshaft. So now let's get on to if it's an electrical issue with your clutch going on. Most of the time what's going to happen is it might just be your charging system not working on your mower. So let's say, for example, your blades, you're cutting just fine, and then your blades stop cutting at the end of the day or halfway through the day or whatever. I always tell people, check the battery, check the charging system, because if the charging system's not working properly, the clutch is going to be the first thing that quits working. It's drawing the most amount of amps and volts from the battery, and once it gets weak, it's going to just shut that off. It's not going to have enough power to power that clutch anymore. It may have enough power to keep running the mower through the coils and all that, but it's not going to have enough juice to keep that PTO clutch engaged, since the battery's not being recharged. So check that first. And then the other most common issue when it's an electrical issue, and when it's an electrical issue, you're not really going to have much noise. You know, you're not going to have, you're not going to hear anything. So usually it might be the wiring harness. So you want to check continuity on that wiring harness. You can take your multimeter, take this wiring harness off right here, take it off there, and check to make sure you have good continuity. And you can also bench test. Sometimes just the clutch itself has quit working. So I'll show you a clip right now how you can bench test this. So I've got the red hooked up to positive, black to negative, and I'm going to activate the battery. I'm going to tap it, and it's activating just fine. All right, so in this situation, I'm going to turn the motor on, just fine. Engage the blades, and on this particular model, you got to make sure the e-brake is off for the blades to engage properly. Now notice it's throwing a code here. Like 3 and 5. So it's throwing code 3 and 5, which is PTO output over current. And you'll notice I saw this on the clutch harness, this bulge. And let me show you real quick. I've already put a new clutch on this. This was a warranty situation. Put a new clutch on it with the anti-rotation upgrade bracket. Got the wiring harness all through there. New bushing cap on the clutch stop bracket bolt. Everything's looking pretty good. So now we need to remove this control panel. You need a 10mm remove there, a 1025 Torx to remove these bolts here. And then you'll have access to the ignition switch, the relay, and the control module. Now if you can't find the control module part number on Deere.com, a lot of times it'll be written right there on the part number itself. Once we got that replaced, got the control module replaced, everything was working great now. Got a new clutch, wiring harness, and control module. Everything's working great. Alright guys, so let's do a quick recap. Alright, so usually it's going to be physical damage. It's either going to be your clutch stop has spun out and allowed it to damage the wiring harness, possibly the clutch. Could be your crankshaft bolt. Unfortunately, that's going to be a tedious job to do. I'd recommend letting a professional drill that out and do that for you if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Or what's most common as far as physical damage are the bearings. You can't do anything about that. They're eventually going to wear out, and you can't grease them or anything. It is what it is. Now, if it's an electronic issue, if your blades are shutting off at the end of the day or periodically, if you're having to recharge your battery, check your charging system. Check out that other video I did on how to check your battery and your charging system. All right, and that can be a quick, easy fix. It's most likely going to be a voltage regulator, which is about a $100 part, takes 2 screws, and you're back in business. All right. Other than that, it's usually like the wiring harness. If it's not that, it's the clutch itself could just have quit working due to old age or just worn out, and then your ignition switch or your control module could also be the issue. So anyway, I hope that's pretty much all the situations. It's pretty simple, but it can get kind of expensive, unfortunately. But hopefully this video will help you save some time and help you save some money. And what I want you to do to help me out, I want you to subscribe to the channel and click that like button. But most importantly, subscribe. I want to have more videos like this coming soon. And I hope you'll stick around and watch the future videos. Check out some of my past videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.